Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about Bhashiva and the Tiger Warriors DLC for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Taking a look at the units, the Lord, the Hero, as well as of course the Legendary Lord from a skirmish standpoint. So we do have Vanguard deployment on Bhashiva, and we do have Vanguard deployment on the Tiger Warrior Stalkers. This is set in sandbox mode, we just have templates right there. So, looking at Bhashiva, her abilities, her stats, her capability in combat. She has anti-infantry, melee expert, flaming attacks, dodge, as well as magical attacks available to her. She's got 52 speed, pretty decent. Level 60 armor, not really the best in the world, but she does have a bunch of abilities that really compensate for that and make her quite crazy in the field battle. I'm not quite sure how well she's going to do from the perspective of a campaign in terms of dueling capability, but I think she's more useful to hit high value targets than duel different lords. Like, would I take her in a duel against Grimgor? I'm not quite sure about that because Grimgor is Grimgor. But anyway, let's take a look at some very important things. And believe it or not, one of the important things is, like, you have Ferocious Ambush on Tiger Warriors. So, like, all of them, I believe all of them, if I can find it on the regular ones, but they all get increased speed, charge bonus, and Ferocious Ambush ability. And Ferocious Ambush is one of those abilities that gives you charge speed, charge bonus, and Devastating Flanker if a unit is charging. And that is quite a good amount of capability. Having Devastating Flanker on units is one thing, right? Having it on lords and heroes is a completely different discussion. So all of them have it, and that makes the Tiger Warriors more units that are about impact and movement on the battlefield as opposed to, I guess, standing and fighting. So I'm guessing from a multiplayer standpoint they would be better in domination. Not quite sure how they're gonna square up in a campaign situation. So what does Bhashiva have? She has Encourage, she has Strider, she has White Tiger, which gives leadership melee attack for allies in range if a unit is a Tiger Warrior. So she's buffing the units in range. She reveals a unit if no enemy presence in ability range with Master of the Hunt. And then, you know, all kinds of different... she's also got physical resistance as well for herself. So while she may not have the armor, don't assume she doesn't have the durability. So do Tiger Warrior Stalkers, but we'll talk about them in just a second. Ability-wise, she has Hidden Huntress, which reduces the speed and melee defense of an enemy target with a 60-second cooldown, but a 20-second duration, 75-meter range. She's got the Blades of Shangyang, because she does follow Xiao Ming, which is kind of hilarious when you think about the fact that Xiao Ming doesn't start with Shangyang, but anyway. So that gives flammable, weapon damage plus 30%, armor-piercing weapon damage 30%, and 24 melee attack. Her melee attack is 65, so that in itself is ridiculously good for a target right there. And it's like also speed, yeah, just a bit crazy. I think she's really good as an assassin, just weaving in and out of battle, because she has the Heaven's Gate ability. This does damage. This has in a radius of 5 meters. It has a range of 150 meters, a duration of 1 second, and cooldown of 120 seconds. And this is a teleport, and it's a blink ability. I'm kind of thinking of the Warden in Warcraft 3. So when you think of Bhashiva in a combat situation, I think she's really, really good at hunting down squishy targets. Cafe already has legendary lords and lords that are pretty good in terms of fighting capability. I don't necessarily think she's the best in terms of fighting capability, but if you want someone that's pre-mobile on the battlefield and on foot, she's the one for the job. Then we have the Tiger Warrior Sawai. So the Sawai is not quite as not quite the same. So what do we have with this Sawai? Obviously, we do have the same kind of benefit as Tiger Warriors do have, which is so you got the Ferocious Ambush ability. You do have Charge Reflection on him. You do have Hide in Forest as well. So, and I believe she also has stock. So she has stock. He doesn't have stock. Like she and the Stalkers have stock. Makes perfect damn sense when you look at it. So charge defense versus large, though I'm not quite sure how well they would these Sawais would do versus single entities. Of course, there's also the discussion about the legendary hero. We'll bring that up in just a moment. But yeah, you get Ferocious Ambush, you get Predatory Instinct if a unit is a Tiger Warrior, so you get base weapon damage, arm piercing weapon damage, and can cause fear. You get Guiding Strike as an ability, which gives you melee attack 24 and weakens the enemy. So that's pretty solid. And then you have Potion of Toughness. This is for the sake of skirmish, of course. I think they're decent enough as melee combatants, though I'm not quite sure if, like, when you look at their speed, 44 speed, that bonus versus large might be useful against, I don't know, cavalry lords or someone on a mount. It is a good amount of armor piercing weapon damage, but between the Celestial Generals and the Dragon Lords of Cathay, I'm not seeing necessarily the benefit of a Sawai just on their own. Obviously, skill lines in a campaign perspective do matter quite a bit, but yeah, that level of armor. And unlike Bhashiva, who has physical resistance, the Tiger Warrior Sawai has less armor and, has less armor, but they do have missile resistance. So I think they're nimble enough, small entities. Then you have the Claw Speaker, which, based on Crave Assembly's own video, these guys give you casualty replenishment. If I were to make a comparison between the Claw Speakers and anything else in the game, I would think of the Giant River Troll Hags for the Greenskins. So basically, these are heroes that I think from a campaign point of view, you would want to use just largely for casualty replenishment. Though they do have magic, so you do get Lore of Beasts, Lore of Life, and Lore of Shadows. So you do get extra magical capability on that subject. Skill lines will, of course, matter quite a bit. So you have Hide in Forest, you have Spell Mastery and Courage, Tiger Warrior. You do have, remember, every Tiger Warrior, including these guys, has Devastating Flanker if they're charging. That's useful, I imagine, in multiplayer situations, but these guys, pretty decent leadership, magical attacks, so might be useful against demons. I'm not quite sure I would use them in many other situations. However, just from a pure battle perspective, but you guys are free to give me your perspective on it. You also get the Mantra of Invigoration on them, or rather, you get the Mantra of Righteousness on beasts, which gives you base weapon damage, melee attack for a Tiger Warrior. You get Mantra of Invigoration on life if unit is a Tiger Warrior, so Vigor Recovery, and it works on Bhashiva and your Sawai, everything that's considered a Tiger Warrior. And then you get Arcane Hymn on Lore of Shadows, on the Claw Speaker Lore of Shadow, which recharges your power reserve capacity. So there's that benefit. That's the lords and heroes of the Tiger Warriors. We'll talk about the legendary hero at the very end of all of this. So in terms of Tiger Warriors themselves, the basic unit, it counts as a tier 2 unit in multiplayer, leadership 78. Cathayan units in general have a pretty good leadership benefit. Low level of armor, though, given her starting position against ogres, greenskins predominantly, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to count that much. And the reason I say that is usually armor is important from the perspective of how to resolve in a campaign. But ogres and greenskins don't necessarily have the most heavily armored units, so maybe less so. Because again, we saw the video, we saw what CA showed us, including victory conditions, by the way, in their own live stream. So you do get devastating flanker, you do get a tiger warrior, get Titan forest. I would say these guys are probably the best early game unit that Cafe has against early game opponents. Think of it from this perspective. When you're playing a Cafe campaign, and you're playing a campaign in general, the bigger problem is just dealing with chaff. And these guys have bonus resistant infantry and armor piercing weapon damage of 14. Halberdiers are good, obviously far more durable, but these guys are dual weapon. And I wouldn't underestimate the capability of a dual weapon infantry unit, especially one that has a pretty decent level of melee attack. And also consider the various benefits that Tiger Warrior units get from their heroes and all that. Then we get the Tiger Warrior Stalkers. These guys have a precursor attack, so they have 2 ammunition for a precursor attack. They can fire while moving, so I guess kind of like a gutter runner unit. They're considered tier 3, 79 leadership, 15 armor, so they're less armored, but they do have that precursor weapon, and they have most of their damage done in armor piercing. I'd probably say with regards to these guys, like the regular Tiger Warriors have more entities than these ones. When we consider the difference, I mean, you're looking at higher speed on the Stalkers right there. Though they do have stock, so keep in mind that, and they do have physical resistance. So even though their armor is lower, and that will certainly hurt you, they probably will end up better in most engagements than the Tiger Warriors, though they're not dual wield. Melee attack is the same, though they have higher melee defense than Tiger Warriors. And then finally we have the Iron Claw Tiger Warriors. These guys do have armor, and they're a completely different beast. So they have charge defense bonus versus large, charge reflection, and yes, they'll have devastating flanker. Remember that aspect. I mean, I think having a unit, speaking about the stalkers, having a unit with devastating flanker while stalking is pretty useful, especially if you disable, fire will, and you are able to sneak up on an enemy and deliver that kind of devastating flanker ability. The Iron Claw Tiger Warriors, 60 armor, pretty good leadership, speed, melee attack, defense, tier 4 unit in skirmish. Bonus versus large, armor piercing weapon damage, just a stand-up infantry unit. Would I take these versus Jade Warriors? I think it depends on what I'm dealing with. Like, if I'm dealing with an opponent that doesn't have armor piercing, then yeah, Halberdiers probably are better. But these guys, I would dare say most of the time they're probably going to do better than Jade Warrior Halberdiers. Though, are they going to do better than Dragon Guards? It's a question of cost right there with regards to these kind of units. But these are the Tiger Warriors that you do get in the DLC. There's, of course, the Legendary Hero, which we should talk about. I mean, I think they do add a good amount of versatility that was missing from the Cafe unit infantry roster, because what's kind of annoying with Cafe from an infantry standpoint is like you just play campaign, and you play that campaign and you just recruit a bunch of peasants, Jade Warriors, and not much else. This offers you greater variety. Would you want to use them? Well, that's the big question. I'd say the important thing, the one thing that tips the scales, is when can you get that casualty replenishment hero? That's probably a discussion worth talking about when I can cover the campaign. At least we have Taoyan the Merciless. Heavily armored, 90 base armor, magical attacks, armor piercing, bonus versus large. But she is a small entity, so if you're thinking, like I remember seeing people on forums talking about, oh, she defeated Kolek. Defeating Kolek in a campaign situation, especially at turn 4, is kind of meaningless, honestly, from my point of view, if you want to judge that by anything. But let's consider how she works. So the fact she's a small entity means she has that problem that all small entities do have against big target. They'll be knocked around, which, yes, can be something of an issue. In terms of her capabilities, like expert charge defense versus large, encourage, hide and forest, missile resistance. So even though she doesn't have a shield, she does have that missile resistance, and she causes fear, which is not an irrelevant aspect when you're thinking about it from a campaign, from a battle perspective. Causing fear, not irrelevant. I think she's better as a duelist to go after entities on the ground, but their speed, you know, she's heavily armored, but she doesn't necessarily have the speed, so she's more, you know, getting there. Would she duel Grimgor? No, I'm sorry. You do not just duel Grimgor. But there's probably a lot of different targets. It depends on the price discussion. She does, however, have some advantages that shouldn't be ignored. She has cause terror through Ultimate Verdict, and she also has Executioner, and she reduces enemy melee defense by 24. So this lasts 28 seconds, so you probably won't want to use it when an opponent is already low enough HP. I think she may mix well with Bhashiva, because Bhashiva just has a lot of damage capability right there. I mean, she's pretty damn fast for, you know, someone on foot, and that's kind of one of the advantages, because a lot of the people that could demolish Bhashiva, she can just flat out fucking outrun them, which is not relevant. Taoyan can be, however, outrun herself by quite a few different targets. She has Tyrant's Talent, which gives her brutal wounds attack, imbuement. She gets base weapon damage 25%, armor piercing weapon damage 25%, and 24 melee attack. So she ends up having, and brutal wounds reduces melee defense. So she ends up having quite a lot of melee attack and quite a lot of damage, but it's more, I think, situational in the way you're going to use her in battle. I guess you could say she's more of a strategic weapon than anything else, really, in a battle situation. From my perspective, I mean, Bhashiva just goes in there and just wrecks things up with no problem. Like, if we just teleport right there, it's like just being able to close the gap between yourself and an enemy, or just ambush them like that, is, especially because remember, she has stock. So you end up with kind of a ridiculous level of power right there. Like, just obvious. Most people probably wouldn't bring Techless on foot, but yeah. I also gotta say, I like her animations in quite a few ways. Like, just a bunch of nifty stuff right there from my point of view. But yeah, that's what you get with the Tiger Warrior DLC pack. You don't get many units. You get one hero, one lord, one legendary hero, all that. What do and cost-wise, you know, just gonna leave that. Like, Tiger Warriors, they're more expensive than most things in the Cafaean unit roster, but you look at the difference in terms of melee attack, melee defense. Like, that's the problem with Cafaean infantry. They can withstand a lot, but they kill things very fucking slowly, right? Especially when you think about Jade Warriors and all that. The fact that you have these guys that have that kind of melee attack is in itself pretty slow. Like, they have more melee attack. When you look at these guys, they have more melee attack than Celestial Dragon Guard, and that is not irrelevant. And I think that's something Cafe needed, because Cafe has a strong range roster. They have beasts, but they really lacked in melee damage dealers. So I think that's the point of this specific DLC. Anyway, Costin signing out. Stay tuned for more.